Yo, this the real. Spent 21 years preaching grace in a California dream. Then a firestorm apocalypse erased the whole scene. Lost the whole community, the homes, every single trace. Nothing left but ash where my safe and secure place was. But through the wildfire's rage, a testament unfurled. The greatest blessing I received in this material world. My faithful God was with me, revealing his design. From the ashes he built a brand new paradise that's divine.
Yeah! Peace!
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of the Tell Me Your Story podcast with your host Chris Baker. How you doing? Thank you. And today's special guest to tell his story is Mr. Ryan Wright. Thank you for coming on the show, man.
So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, indeed. I'm glad that you're on the show. Well, let's just jump right into this, man. Let's jump into like the very beginning. Where does it all begin for you? Where does your life start?
Yeah, so born and raised in Paradise, California. Paradise is a small town in Northern California, and pretty much lived there my entire life. So I'm one of those guys, grew up there. I lived in 12 different homes in Paradise during my lifetime, during my upbringing there. I've got some construction in the family, so we moved around a couple times. And went away to college, always. So one of my biggest influences when I was in high school was I had a coach and a PE teacher and a weight training teacher named Mr. Danielson. And I always thought, man, this guy's got the life. He's coaching basketball, which I love basketball, and he's getting paid to lift weights. And so that was really important to me. And so I went to school to be a teacher. And I had a huge U-turn in my senior year of college where I didn't pursue teaching. I actually went into the ministry. I could tell you a little bit more about how that happened, but yeah, born and raised in Paradise, and then ended up being a pastor in Paradise for 21 years, and being able to pour back into the community that I was raised in was just an absolute blessing.
All right. For the younger generation that are currently coming up now, they want to know, during this time period, was it technology or no technology? How was your childhood? What was going on there? Did you have a phone in front of your face, or were you just living life?
Oh man, no technology. In fact, it's all through my childhood, no technology. I had, we did have a gaming system. Atari 2600 was, I know it's funny because my wife teaches second grade, and when I was in high school, Nintendo was a big deal. The original Nintendo. And my wife teaches second grade, and they had like ancient relics during like an open house the other night. And the original Nintendo was in the ancient relics section. I was like, that's me. Come on.
That's me. That's where I belong. That's mine.
Yeah,
that's what I grew up on, man.
Exactly. Yeah, that hurt. So yeah, not really much technology. In fact, when I went to college, I used a word processor. And if you're younger and you don't know what that is, Google it. It's basically like before computer. And so think of like a glorified typewriter is what I graduated college with using. Yes. So I'm not very techy.
I'm thinking to myself, like when you said Google it, I think now, even nowadays, that's actually become a thing of the past when I'm thinking about it. Because ChatGPT is kind of taking everything over AI pretty much. So nobody's going to Google anymore. They're like, I don't need Google. I'm actually going to this guy who actually will help me with everything. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, ChatGPT it.
Let's just say we've been around longer than Google.
That's right. Yeah.
So they want to know, what was life without technology, man? What was going on? What was happening there? How did you live life without a phone or without recording everything that's going on in your life?
So what we did is we actually went out and played. We actually went out, like I lived in a neighborhood with some neighbors. We would go out and we would ride bikes all over the place. We'd play tag. We'd play hide and go seek. In the neighborhood I grew up in, there was a huge tunnel that went like underneath the road. And so it was like the perfect opportunity for like hide and seek and like chasing type of scenarios. So we had tons of fun. I had a huge, my dad built me a skateboard ramp, and we lived kind of like at the very end of a hill. So it was like a perfect segue, like just skating downhill, launching off this ramp, and falling most of the time. But lots of memories were made there right at the base of our driveway in Paradise with a lot of the neighborhood kids. It was pretty awesome.
I'm thinking of myself too. Like I remember doing that as a kid, building ramps, just making like a ramp out of anything. Get like a piece of wood, get a board, and like we're getting to get on the bike, skateboard, whatever. Man, we're jumping that ramp.
Heck yeah!
So dad comes out and finds out whatever we're using as wood. It's like, oops, sorry, Dad. We're gonna put it back. I promise. So with high school, you said you had your favorite teacher. So were you an athlete? What was going on there? Were you the king of the school? What was going on?
No, I wouldn't say I was king of the school, but I would say I was an athlete. Our class going through, it was a pretty special group of athletes. My senior year of high school, my junior year and my senior year of high school, our team won the section for basketball, and that's pretty crazy because it hasn't happened at Paradise High since. So it's been a long streak without a section championship. So I feel very fortunate to have been a part of a great group of athletes. And yeah, I mean, I was one of them. I wouldn't say I was the top dog on campus by any means, and no one else would call me that either. But I was, got to play a lot and obviously loved participating there. I played football. In high school, I played football, basketball, baseball, and golf. And so, pretty good. I was never good at golf. So definitely wouldn't say I'm a golfer, but loved competing in football, and basketball was my love. Obviously, you can see in my background there, I got the Michael Jordan logo. And by the way, I just got to say, Michael Jordan is the GOAT of basketball. And then, I just have a love for basketball. I actually ended up coaching basketball at Paradise High for like 18 years once I came back from college, which was a blast. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a blessing, man. And strives to go back and to teach something that you love.
Absolutely, yeah.
Imagine like your passion for it too.
Yeah, and I was fortunate enough to play basketball in college, so to bring back the things that I had learned in that environment back to the high school was really fun. And so doing drills, running practices, it was like I was reliving what I learned in college, which was a blast. And just I feel like it really helped the program. And just being able to build relationships as a youth pastor in town, just being able to build relationships and be on campus every day was so much fun for me. And so, and obviously I love the sport of basketball. So giving back in that way was always a blessing.
Well, let's jump into your college experience. You said you went in first, the idea of playing basketball and becoming a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said it became ministry. Let's dive deeper into that.
Yeah. So I didn't go to school to play basketball. What happened was I was just playing pickup basketball with guys that were on the team, and they kept encouraging me to try out. And I was just like, I don't know. I don't think so. Because I was like just nervous of being a freshman in college. I was just nervous, like with the grades and the studying, like, is that something I'd even be able to pull off? But they convinced me to try out, and I tried out and made the team, ended up playing a lot, even my freshman year, which was a blast. And just connecting with those guys was incredible. And yeah, I went to school to be a teacher. That was my goal. I would come back in the summer times to Paradise, and I would intern with the youth department. And so I started serving, within my own, my old youth group, and just, fell in love with doing that. So I would come back in the summers, serve there in the summertime. And my senior year of college, February, and my senior year of college, like 2 months before I graduated, I got a call from the lead pastor. His name was Keith Potter. He called me on the phone. He said, "Hey, Ryan," just out of the blue. "Hey, Ryan, we're opening up a middle school only department at the church, and we're looking for someone to oversee that department. and you are the first person on our list, and you are the only person on our list. And we just want to know if you and my wife and I had just gotten married the May before that. Would you and Jessica consider pivoting and coming back to Paradise and serving youth full time here? And so Jessica and I thought about it, we prayed about it, and next thing you know, I graduated college at the end of April of 1997 and started my adventure in youth ministry June 1st of 1998.
Nice.
So I think I said 97. June 1st, April 1998, and I started in June 1998. So I graduated college and basically went straight through and started a career serving in my hometown of Paradise, which was such a blessing. And I'll add, I knew nothing about what I was doing. I felt like so incompetent. I did not like being called pastor. That was just like a foreign to me. I didn't feel like I deserved that or had a right to do that, but there I was, just serving the youth. The nice thing is when I talked to the senior pastor on the phone, I let him know all these things. So I feel really inadequate to do that. And he encouraged me to say, Ryan, you've been serving the youth here for the last few summers. We've been watching you, and we're actually not looking for a spiritual egghead. We're actually looking for somebody to just love these youth. And when he said that, it like took a lot of pressure off that I was feeling. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can love people. I can love youth. And, so I started from ground zero, basically knowing nothing about youth ministry, and just learned and failed and learned the ropes along the way. And what I found is I really do love that age group. I thought I could, at the time, I thought, man, I could work with middle school students for the rest of my life. 6 years into being a junior high youth pastor, I got demoted, and I then worked with high school students. And so from 2004 through 2018, I worked with high school students. And then the big fire happened in Paradise, California, the campfire of 2018. And that kind of unraveled a whole bunch of things in our town.
Before we get into that, I kind of want to learn more about you. When did your relationship with Christ begin? Did it start in college? Were you brought up in a family, or when did it happen?
For sure. So I was born in a family that was a faith family. We went to church every single week. Turn that down. Sorry if you can hear that. We went to church every single week, and that was just how I grew up. It's like we go to church. I remember when I was 5 years old, my mom was tucking me in because she usually tucked us kids into bed. And I remember that was the moment I remember like I gave my life to the Lord. Like we were having a conversation about Jesus. And so it was a very young age, still, as you know, like 5 years old isn't very old, but that's the moment when I think back to, is like, that's the moment that I turned my life over to the Lord. And of course, from then it was just learning what it looked like to actually follow in the footsteps of Jesus and to be an example like he wants me to be. And a lot of it was just failing and fumbling along the way. But that's when my faith journey began, is literally when my mom was tucking me into bed and me just inviting the Lord to take over my life, to live for him.
That's incredible, man. And then it led you to becoming a youth minister. And what was the difference between when you first started and then going into that, teaching high school kids?
I'm sorry, it cut out a little bit there, so I couldn't hear that whole question.
What I was saying is, so when you became a youth minister and you got promoted to the high school kids, what was that like? Or demoted?
Yeah, I say demoted as a joke, but it was actually a scary time because I had just gotten so used to the middle school age, and I felt like high school, they think a little bit more, they're smarter, and so I thought, is this an age group that I'm going to be able to connect with? And then I just found very quickly, my goodness, I love this age group. I love the fact that they're able to think deeper, that they're more invested into relationships. And they're also, what I really liked about the high school age is high school age, they're still impressionable, but they're also at an age where they're starting to make decisions that are going to affect the rest of their life. And so it was really a blessing for me, not only to be in my local community, but to be in that age group that is so crucial. And when I was in high school, I had two youth pastors when I was in high school. One was when I was a freshman through junior, and then the other one was when I was a senior. And these guys they're heroes. They are heroes in my life. They are huge mentors, a huge part of my story, a huge part of my development. And I always looked up to them, and I still look up to them. And so for me to have stepped into that role where I could be that for other people was, again, in my own community, was just such a blessing in every single way. Paradise, like I said before, it's a small town, and we were like the big church in a small town. And so it was fun to be like the place that youth would come and hang out. So we had people coming to church all the time, youth coming to the church that had no interest in the things of God. They were just there because there was cute girls there, or we had people that were like, sold out to the Lord and wanting to live for him and to be a test. Like, it was a wide range, and it was just so fun to like have such a variety of students there, from people that had no interest at all to like fully invested in the things of God. And then for me personally, it was just a blessing to help those people that had no interest, help them along in their faith journey, and actually see them make decisions for the Lord, get baptized, and start living a life for him. It was just, I mean, it's unbelievable how incredible it was to give back to my community in that way.
Now, tell me, what was like the most challenging thing you had to deal with when you first started?
When I first started in ministry, or with high school ministry?
High school ministry.
Probably the hardest thing taking on the high school ministry was they're just in an age where they're making critical decisions, and they don't know they're making critical decisions. And so that's probably the hardest part. And, you mentioned earlier technology. So during that time, technology was really advancing. So now you've got students carrying around a phone, and they're distracted by their phone. And there's, all sorts of problems they can get into with their phone. When I was young, you had to go out and find trouble. And now people carry around this thing in their pocket, and they're just one click away from just making some really stupid decisions. And so, being understanding of that, being compassionate about that. And, I felt like I never wanted to be the type of church or the type of leaders where we were just entertaining people to come to church. Although there is that factor there in ministry, like you want to do something that, and we did plenty of those. We want to provide the types of environments where our students feel super excited to bring their friends to. And so we would do that all the time. But it's a fine balance there. I think that's a learning thing for high school. It's like, okay, at what point are we like leaning too much towards entertainment? And then we would it's always a balancing act. Okay, so we did the entertainment. Now we got to let's make sure they have a solid foundation of what this is all about. So when they come here, they actually know that we're here for a purpose. And the purpose is to glorify God. The purpose is to live for him. And the purpose is to help people find and follow Jesus. That's really what our mission is about. So if it means we got to do some entertaining, I'm willing to do that. If it means I got to look like a clown every once in a while, I'm willing to do that. If it means that we got to do something I don't even really like doing, but our youth enjoy doing, then I will do that if that's going to reach more youth. So that was pretty much my segue. And I felt like coaching also was another great medium to connect with specifically the guys in high school. Because if their coach, is on campus every single day, and they know their coach is a person of faith and is a good example and leading with integrity. And if you can get the guys invested in a youth group, the girls will show up. That's always been my belief. Whereas it's not necessarily always the other way around. Like if it's a female heavy youth group, the guys may not show up. But if you get the guys to show up, and specifically if you get athletic guys to show up, like they just have their own aura. And so that's why like coaching was so important to me. It wasn't just for the coaching. It was, hey, this is actually something that's going to help build something that's going to shape our town. And so I was really grateful to be a part of all that.
I like how you said, though, I mean, being on campus with the students and then being able to reflect and say, hey, coach is really, he's about his faith.
Yeah.
Because to me, that brought back memories when I was in my youth group. We called it Life Team. We'd get out of service, eat whatever we'd have supper right afterwards, and then we'd do whatever activities was like lined up, because we'd do tug of war and all stuff like that, just something going on in the gym. And then, like you said, you would break down and get into, learning more about Christ.
Sure.
And that was an incredible journey, especially when we got to like go places too, like the Life for March in DC. That was really an eye opener, seeing that for the first time, going out there like, wow, look at all these people. And then, I mean, it's like, it's kind of scary at first when you first do it, but when you know what you're really there for, it's like, wow, this is cool, man. I like this.
Yeah.
But I like what you were saying, though. So having somebody in the ministry that you can look up to, and an older person, like, it's kind of rare to come across nowadays, because a lot of coaches, I mean, you keep seeing on the news and stuff where they're getting caught in these situations where.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, when you have somebody that you can look up to, I think it really helps you along your journey. So I agree with. I mean, I like that.
Yeah, and I'd also say there's, and this isn't talking about other coaches, but there are coaches out there that claim that they are people of faith, but then their behavior as a coach is like they cuss like sailors. They're yelling at the referees, and sometimes their actions don't align. And so for me, it was like really important as a coach. One is like the players had to know I was for them. That was really important to me. I've got some memories as a coach where players came to me dealing with some really heavy things that had nothing to do with basketball. And that's important to me because it just meant that they trusted me with some really heavy information. And it was usually about their family or what was going on in their personal life. And so, that was really meaningful to me. But yeah, there's some people out there that they live under this banner of being a Christian. But then when their behavior doesn't really match it, it just makes.
Something's going on with the camera every once in a while, but yeah, I totally agree with you though. Having like, when you get people with their, when it's personal, man, he steps away from the sports. That just shows how much trust they have in you as a coach, as a person, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, there was one year where, gosh, it was right at the beginning of practice, and you could just tell the weight of the world was on this kid's shoulders. And so I just said, hey, what's going on? And he had just found out that his girlfriend was pregnant, and that's what he walked into practice with. And I just knew this kid, and I knew that something was off. Right. And so just to have that conversation, and then to be able to follow up with him and pace with him for the next several months was, just a blessing. But, I was just honored that I was the first person in his life that he revealed that to. And it was like he was carrying around 1,000 pounds at practice, and it was just took me noticing and just asking about it. And it was like, he just spilled his guts. Right. And so that doesn't just happen unless there's trust built. And so, that's just the type of coach that I wanted to be.
And I'm just thinking too, like when you really break down that situation, I mean, as a high school student, going and finding out that you're going to be a dad, before you even get the chance to actually live your life. I
Right.
can only imagine what was going through the young guy's mind,
Yep.
especially the girl too. It's like this is life changing. You're not gonna be like the rest of your friends where they go off to college. Like, no, you're gonna have to. You got another part of your life you got to take care of now.
You got it.
You made that commitment. Now you got to follow up with it.
Right. That's right.
So, what was your advice to him? What were you like? What were you telling him?
It was just like, hey, I love you. I'm here for you. I know this seems like a whole big old weight that you're carrying right now, but you'll get through this, and this is a blessing. And the best thing you can do is just own it, and then talk about it. And maybe that for you, that's not today. Maybe that's another day. But I made sure that he had my number. I made sure that he had my availability, and then I made sure to follow up with him regularly at practice and just talk about that. And there was some days he wanted to talk about it, and there was other days that he didn't. That's okay. We all process things differently, and when really big things hit us in life, especially us guys, we kind of try to like grin and bear it. But I just made sure to like be the one to be proactive and ask him about it on a regular basis. And of course, there was days that he really unpacked, and there was other days that he didn't want to unpack it. And that's okay.
Just going through the emotions. So
Yep.
he ended up becoming the mayor of the town.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had a lot on his shoulders, man. I mean, he ended up becoming a dad, and then he's in charge of the town. I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But all right, let's jump into the fires that took place. How was it? What was life like building up to that moment?
Yeah, so things were going great in Paradise. The community of Paradise, the one unique thing about Paradise, it's pretty much covered in a canopy of trees, pine trees and oak trees. And there had been several instances in the past where there was a fire nearby, and they would put our town on evacuation warning. And so my personal thought was, there will be a time where Paradise does go up in flames, just because it was so overgrown with trees. I mean, people had huge trees, all around their houses. And so that was my thought, like Paradise is going to go up in flames at some point. But we had so many evacuation warnings that it was just kind of like, okay, well, we've got this box at home. If we ever need to evacuate, just evacuate with this box and we can get out of here. The day of the fire, it was November 8th, 2018. I was actually at the gym working out. That was kind of my normal morning routine. I was on the treadmill running. And as I was running, the manager of the gym comes over, and because I have my earbuds in, he taps on my shoulder, took my earbuds out, and he says, "You've got 30 seconds to get out of here, and we advise that you leave Paradise right away." And I was just like, oh, give me a break. Here's another person, with an evacuation warning, and probably not that big of a deal. And I walked outside, and there was falling debris coming from the sky, smoking. Like it was like there was smoking debris. So it was like and it was really windy. There was leaves blowing around that had it was like there were smoking leaves. So I got into my vehicle, and like literally there, I could see there was ash on my vehicle, and then there was leaves falling on my vehicle that were like smoldering. It's like, okay, this is actually a big deal. And of course I didn't leave town. I went straight home. I wanted to make sure I got that box that we always said we need to get in the event of an emergency. So I went home and took a shower, loaded that up, and I get a call from my wife. My wife teaches second grade. "Ryan, you need to get to the school right away. We need to evacuate all the kids out of here. We're hearing sounds of things exploding, and it's actually reached a nearby gas station." And so they're hearing explosions at the school. I'm like, okay, well, that's serious. So I need to get to the school right away. And so my son had just got home. He had just got his license. He got home. I told him to park his car in the garage, and we headed off together. As soon as we pulled out into the street, absolute gridlock in Paradise. Everyone's trying to get out of town at the same time. And so there's only 3 ways in Paradise, and there's only 3 ways out. And it's not like, big cities, there's like big freeways. We're talking like two-way traffic, right? So it's not like easy to get in and out of Paradise. And so everyone's trying to get out at the same time. Everything is gridlocked. So I'm like, literally, I'm there stuck in the road, and I'm looking ahead, and I can just see like a gigantic plume of smoke, and it's getting a little bit darker in Paradise. Like the sun is has been blocked by the smoke. And I'm looking around at all these tall pine trees and oak trees that I'm like in the middle of, and I'm going, this is not good. We're stuck. Traffic isn't moving at all. And this is the one that I knew was always going to happen. This is the one. And so meanwhile, there's still stuff falling from the sky. There's still ash falling down. There's still, smoldering leaves and all this stuff, falling all around us. And fortunately, no fires are starting around, but that's the scenario I was in. And that was a scenario that most people in Paradise were in. I was on the west side of Paradise, and the fire came from the east. And so my exit story isn't nearly as traumatic as the people that lived on the east side of town, because they were literally driving through, skyscraper sized flames on both sides of the road, and very traumatic, very traumatic. I just had a mission, and that was just to get to the school to help my wife get all of her kids out of the class and get them off the hill. When I actually got to the intersection, because by the time I got to an intersection to go toward the school, there was people guarding, like just directing traffic, trying to get them out, and they would not let anyone go in the direction towards the school. So fortunately, there were some parents that showed up to help, get some kids evacuated from the school. And my wife, we had a big expedition, and she just loaded that thing up with as many students as she possibly could. And we all made it out of town going probably 2 miles an hour, just going out of town, just drudging along. And fortunately we made it to Skyway. Skyway's like the main, entrance into town and out of town. We finally made it to Skyway, and we kind of inched our way out of town very slowly. And, a huge darkness covered Paradise. And our way to Chico, part way to Chico, which is the community just down the hill, all the darkness kind of cleared. And then all of a sudden it was like clear as day looking down Chico. And I remember driving down the Skyway out of Paradise, headed towards Chico, and just looking in my rear view mirror and the side mirrors, and just like having their understanding, like the town of Paradise is literally going up in flames, like the entire town. I mean, the plume of smoke it was crazy. If anybody wants to Google the campfire and just look at the photos, like the plume of smoke was unreal. And so that's pretty much what that day consisted of. We made it down to Rayleigh's shopping center, the parking lot, because that's where all of her school was trained to go to in the event of a big disaster. And that's where I ended up. And so that's where kind of the madness unfolded, was at Rayleigh's, because I was a youth pastor, and I've got kids in my youth group that are showing up at the Rayleigh's parking lot, and all means of communication by phone were gone. So they were not able to connect with their parents. They didn't know if their parents made it out of town. they were worried about all of their family. They were worried about their belongings. They were worried about their homes. Like everything was unknown. Plus, you had people getting into the Rayleigh's parking lot that had traveled from the east side of Paradise, and literally they drove through hell, right? And they were just glad to be alive. That's how intense it was for them. Like, I remember, one of the leaders of our church had showed up to the parking lot, and I was just like, wow, man, what a morning. What kind of crazy, huh? And like, didn't occur to me till later, like they were in shock. They were in absolute shock. They had just made it out of driving through hell, basically. And they didn't think they were going to make it. They thought they were going to die in their car on the road. And so, I felt bad because I kind of tried to make light of, something big that was happening. But for them, it was like, no, like they had just had kids, and they had their kids with them, and they were like in total shock. So you had a wide variety of those types of scenarios. From my own family, my family's from Paradise, my wife's family's from Paradise. And there was a long span of time where my wife's side of the family, we couldn't contact them. We didn't know where they were at. Fortunately, my wife's brother would call us every once in a while, but he would tell us like the fire's getting close, because he got stuck in Paradise. They told him to shelter in place in a parking lot, just because there was kind of a protection of space where the fire couldn't get to. But we were getting reports from him every once in a while. But it was scary, like not knowing who was making it off the hill, and then being a youth pastor, just trying to console students that were coming down there. They're like, we can't get a hold of our parents. We don't know if they made it out. It was wild, absolutely wild, devastating.
Well, I'm thinking to myself as you were telling me, I could only imagine. I mean, just driving through that, and you said traffic is so backed up, and you're in that moment, you want to get out of there.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about like you probably had people being crazy and trying to swerve around traffic, trying to drive off in the grass, or whatever.
Oh yeah, people that got stuck, they would drive through fences, because people would there was people that like had nice cars, and so they would load up their car on a trailer, or there was people that were like loading up their travel trailers, and they weren't getting everything in place like it should. It was like in a hurry. So there was travel trailers falling off the hitch. There was people driving through fences just to like find a way through town. There's people driving, down the, Paradise had like a big walkway, kind of like through the middle of town. There were people driving down that instead of driving on roads. Yeah, they're panicking. What do you do? I had people on my basketball team. I had people in my youth group that literally they were standstill traffic. They abandoned their car and they ran for their lives. Like they got out of the car and ran. It's like just unreal what was going on.
Yeah, like I said, I'm thinking about just driving through the madness. You're seeing like the town that you grew up in all around you. All the memories are just becoming ash.
Mm-hmm.
The trees are all up in flames, and there's probably people that are just missing the mark where trees are coming down in front of them.
Yeah,
as they're just cruising, and then you, as the man of God, you got to stay. You're trying to have humor in that moment, trying to lighten up the mood, to say, hey guys, it's okay, we're good. God had our backs. He made it through, but everybody in their minds thinking about, is dad okay? Is mom okay? Are the kids okay? Is my cousins okay? My friends, did they make it through?
Yeah, it was absolutely wild. It was really wild. My wife, like I said, she teaches second grade. The last parents that picked up a student didn't show up till like 6 o'clock that night. And so, we all left town. I'm guessing it was like 8:30 or 9 is when we tried leaving town. So from that point until 6 o'clock at night, we didn't know whose parents made it off a hill and whose parents did. And fortunately, and that's another thing we're thinking, well, what in the world if their parents didn't make it off the hill? Like, what are we supposed to do with these kids? And so, fortunately, by the grace of God, all their parents made it. But by that time, it was late in the evening, and we were just emotionally exhausted and spent from just trying to care for people throughout the day. And also throughout the day, we're getting reports, that houses are burning down. Teachers associated with my wife's school are finding out their house didn't make it. And so all those emotions, we had one of the teachers at the school had dogs, and the dogs were in the home. And just the thought, sometimes people love their pets just as much as they love people. And so finding out, like, not only did they lose their home, they lost their pets. It was like just all the trauma and any drama that you can think of that happened in that parking lot, it happened that day. Like all the worst case scenarios, they all happened that day in that parking lot.
It probably, like, if anybody's listening to this or watching this from home, it probably looked like if you ever watched the movie Titanic, where they're all in the water, everybody's streaming. That's probably what the scene probably looked like.
Yep,
but
it was
in a parking lot.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And the eerie thing is, while we were in Chico in the parking lot, you literally look up the hill, and all day long you just have this reminder of our whole town is burning down, and it's probably not good news about our home. So that's kind of what we lived with, and we lived with that for a while. A lot of it, we just didn't know. I didn't know for, I don't know how many days it was before I found out that our home didn't make it. But they had this online, they had kind of the burn scar area of the fire. And for a while there, the place that we lived, I had a custom built home in Paradise. My uncle is a contractor, and he just built us a beautiful home that we were just so proud of. Just so many great memories there from being in youth ministry, having youth there all the time, having our youth staff there all the time, just being hospitable people. And so we lived in a sliver of this area online, as it showed, areas that had burned and areas that hadn't burned. And we were always in the sliver that seemed to be protected from the fire. And we didn't know why, because we were surrounded by trees just like everyone else. And so we had the mindset of, okay, well, everyone else in our family is in an area where their home's probably gone. So we're going to turn our house into like a shelter for all the rest of our family and whoever needs it. And so we had kind of prepared our hearts and our minds for, this place is going to continue to be a place of service, and whoever needs to stay here can stay here. And if this property is going to become like Camp Wright, then we're going to make it Camp Wright, And so, but unfortunately, I don't know, it was probably a week after the fire, I got a picture from one of my friends, sent me a picture of the front of our house, our driveway, and it is absolutely, everything's on the ground except for me and my father-in-law. We put like this custom granite rock entrance. We made it together. That's the only thing that's standing through the fire, just because it's all rock. So everything on our entire property is absolutely leveled. All you can see is the spot that me and my father-in-law put together. And then you can just see the lump of the remaining part of my son's car that I made him park it in the garage. That's all you could see on our property. Everything else is just ground level. It's just wild. So that was a very, seeing that picture was so, I don't know. You just felt all the emotions, because we went from it looks like our house made it and we're going to be like a place of hope, to finding out that the house is gone, and like, oh my goodness, now what do we do? That was like a whole new level of despair. Like, gosh, if we don't have anything, because all of our family, they all lost everything too. So it was like crazy. It's not like one of those scenarios where like my home burnt, but everyone else's home survived, so I can go find a place to hang out for a bit. It was like everyone in town, 95% of the people who had homes in Paradise, their homes burnt to the ground. And so everyone was in the same awful scenario all at the same time. Pretty pretty crazy.
Oh, did you guys have like insurance on your homes? Did the state actually help you guys out? What happened next?
Yeah, a good question. Yeah, we had insurance. And our insurance took great care of us. We had farmers insurance. And so we're grateful for, how they took care of us through that. It was just a long season. While the insurance did a great thing, it's still a long season of so much unknown. Like every factor of your life is turned upside down. No more sense of community. I didn't disconnected from neighbors, disconnected from friends, disconnected from the youth group that I was overseeing. Disconnected from the team that I was coaching. Just like every possible scenario you can think of that you just take for granted every day because it's just there. It's like all of that's gone in in a matter of 24 hours. And that's not just me, it's to everyone else too. They're facing the same thing as well. And so just a huge challenge from all angles. And like, it's not like you read a book about that in high school or college, like, how to make it through disaster. Like no one prepares you for that. And so it's just like literally like trying to survive moment by moment is all you can do.
So what was it like for you personally to start over from ashes?
It was a challenge. It was a real challenge. For me, the biggest challenge was, 95% of the community vacated from Paradise basically overnight, which means 95% of our church basically vanished overnight. And what that meant for me personally, it meant that, and I don't blame the church for this by any means, but it just meant that they had to make some major changes and major adjustments. And for me, what that meant was they put me in a role that was not in youth ministry anymore. And that was just a heartbreak because that's my passion, right? That's my those are my people. And I feel like those are the people I connect with really well. So not only did the fire take away the home, take away our community, but like the people that I felt like I was on this earth to serve, like that got stripped from me as well. So my sense of purpose felt like that was taken away a little bit. So yeah, there was lots of questions I had for God around that. Like what in the world, like not only did I lose everything, but what am I supposed to do now? And so that was a challenge, changing roles. And that change of roles ultimately, there's some other things involved there, big changes going on with the church. And it just came to a point where I realized my time serving at this church is probably needs to come to an end. And that was probably the most devastating byproduct of the fire, is that I came to the very tough conclusion that I'm not supposed to continue here at the church at this time. That was the most excruciating decision I think I've ever had to make in my life. But it's turned out to be the best decision I've made in my life. So it's actually turned into a really beautiful thing.
So what people would like to know, like, we don't really talk about it as men, but what was going on with your mental health during this time period?
Yeah, a lot of soul searching for sure. A lot of frustration. A lot of disappointment. I'd say for me, it was, once I made the decision that I needed, like my time at the church needed to be done, I was scared. I was scared because I didn't have a backup plan at the time. Fortunately, I had very soon after I had made that decision, I had two things just thrown in my lap. And one happened to be with the guy that I said was one of my mentors when I was in high school. He was my basketball coach, and he was my PE teacher, my weight training teacher. He's also my football coach. He actually had transitioned from being a teacher at Paradise High School, and he was working in the insurance world. And he and I met for breakfast one day, and he basically said, Ryan, if you ever need anything, I'd hire you in a heartbeat. And so this was just out of the blue. And so I had that opportunity. And then I would say probably 7 months after the fire, I connected with one of my former players who had actually graduated Paradise High. And he came back, and because he was from the Paradise area, he opened up a fitness gym in Paradise. And we just happened to cross paths like 7 months after the fire. He's like, hey, coach, not sure if you noticed this, but they just chopped down like 80% of the trees in Paradise, which they had because most of them had gotten torched from the fire. And our town that was once covered in a canopy of shade from the trees was now wide open to the sun. And for those of you that aren't aware, the PG&E, who is our local utility company, they are the ones that claimed responsibility for the fire because they had faulty equipment that caused a spark, and that spark on a really windy day caught fire, and then that fire spread like crazy. And so they had claimed responsibility for the fire. So the residents of Paradise were furious with the utility company because they basically were the ones responsible for burning down the town. And so he was like, Coach, everyone in town knows who you are. They just cut down all these trees in Paradise and we're wide open to the sun. And people are already upset with the utility company. And after the fire, I got a job because he had lost his fitness gym in the fire along with all of his equipment. He got a job in the solar energy industry. And he's like, Coach, you'd be really good at this. Like everyone in town already knows who you are, and we could be a part of like bringing hope back to our community. And when he said that, I was just like, that intrigues me because I'm a community guy and our town is devastated. And I would love to be a part of bringing hope back to our community. And so I, invested into that a little bit further. And long story short, I actually ended up getting into the solar industry because one of my former players recruited me. And so when I said earlier, that was, the decision to be done with the church was the most excruciating decision I'd made in my life. The byproduct of that is now I had another opportunity. And the unique thing about the solar industry is it's, whereas I had a job at the church where I got, I knew I was getting paid every 2 weeks. The difference now in the solar industry is this was a commission only position. And so that meant that if I work really hard, I might get paid. But it's not a guarantee. And so that was a really scary season for me because I was, I needed to be a provider and I needed to prove that this is something that I could do. And that's really what I set my mind toward is like, now more than ever, my family needs to see me go out and crush and just grind and prove that we don't give up, prove that we don't quit, prove that we're not going to just sit in the corner and whine about this fire for the rest of our lives, which we totally could have done. And there's plenty of people from Paradise that are still whining about it. They haven't got over it. And it's a big deal. I'm not minimizing it, but that's choice. You have a choice to like rise up and take hold of the circumstances and respond in a way that's like going to be good and healthy. You also have the choice to sit in the corner and suck your thumb for the rest of your life and blame everyone under the sun for your bad circumstances. And I just knew as a dad and as a husband, I needed to rise up as a leader and show my family we don't quit. We don't back down. And if it means that I got to go, because my role in the solar company was literally, I was in my 40s, is literally going door to door and knocking on doors and having a conversation with people about their utility prices and how they can get away from overpriced utility rates just by taking advantage of the sun. And that was easy in Paradise because they were already really upset with the utility company. But what I didn't realize at the time, Chris, is that most of Paradise had left. They moved. They either moved out of state or they moved to Chico or they moved to, some of the surrounding companies. And so for me, what it meant was as people found out I was in the solar industry, they were calling me and saying, hey, Ryan, we just bought a house in Chico and we need a solar estimate. Or we just bought a house in Corning. We just bought a house in Yuba City. And I was getting calls from all these people from the Paradise community that knew me. And I think it's just because they trusted me. They've known me for a long time. And so my original idea of bringing back hope to Paradise was a great thought in my mind. It just didn't occur to me like most of Paradise had vanished and I was going to be able to go help all the communities that they now moved to. And then obviously once I served them well, they would tell their friends and their neighbors, and I would, usually one job would turn into 3 or 4. And so it was just an absolute blessing. And when I look back, I'm just like, wow, I never, ever would have said, hey, I'm going to be a salesperson. I'm going to go door to door. That's not something I had in my plans, 10 years ago, but it's what I had to do. And it's what I was willing to do. And I'm really grateful for everything I've learned from that industry and just the level of help I've been able to provide for our local community. It's actually been quite a blessing.
And I often think about this when you have them life-changing moments. And when it's all said and done, you're sitting before God. Because you can have those questions.
Yeah.
You're like, God, thank you. Because like you said, you didn't see that ever. You probably saw yourself as probably retiring in ministry, just doing that the rest of your life. And then God's like, no, you're not. I got other things for you.
Yeah, and you asked earlier about mental health. One of my, when I'll just say this. I went through a long season of feeling hurt. I went through a long season of asking God really tough questions, like, what the heck? Like, none of this makes sense. I don't get it. This is awful. But then after being in the solar industry for a while and looking back, having the benefit of hindsight, 2020, just looking back, I'm like, God was so faithful every step of the way, even though at times I didn't see it. After I'd been in the solar industry for a bit, the owners of the company came to me. I didn't go to them. They came to me and they said, hey, Ryan, you're absolutely crushing it. Like, no one is selling more solar than you in our company. And if you can, they gave me an amount. They said, if you can do this amount in the next 3 months, we want to bring you on as one of the owners of the company.
Wow.
I'm like, what? And so yeah, like, okay. I didn't even know what that meant. And they threw out a really audacious number. And I said, guys, that's really cool. That's really generous of you. I could probably pull that off in 6 months. Can you give me 6 months to do that? And they said, yeah, we'll give you 6 months. Well, I ended up doing it in 3. And
wow.
That's great. Yeah. And it was just one of those things where I got brought on as an owner of a company. I didn't ask for that. They just saw potential in me and came to me on it. And to me, as I'm looking back, I'm like, that's one of the things I just feel like God just placed something right in my lap and said, hey, I know this doesn't make sense. I know this last season's been, a lot of disappointment. A lot of this last season has been frustrating, but I'm just going to put this in your lap. And it's not something you asked for, but it's just going to be a blessing beyond your imagination. And here you go. And I just look back and I'm like, that was all God. That I had nothing to do with that. And so all I look back, I'm just grateful. I just have gratitude for him, like, walking me through that season. And you can just see his fingerprints all throughout that season, that I'm just so grateful. I look back on the fire. I mean, it seems really weird to say, but when I look back on the fire, obviously terrible at the time, but now with hindsight vision, like, that is hands down the best thing that has ever happened in my life and has happened in our family's life, because it forced me to really figure out who I really am. It forced me to go out and make something happen. And it forced me to lead my family in a way that I hadn't been pressed to do before. And so I'm just grateful for it. It just brought new challenges and new opportunities for growth. And I'm just super grateful for the person I become as a result.
And I think it's like a perfect time to add in too. It's like, somebody watching and listening to this right now is in that position where they don't want to step out of their comfort zone. They're unsure of what's next, but they, like you said, you were ready to move on. It was time for you to move on from the ministry.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you were going through it. You were praying hard. You were going through the emotions, just like everybody else. And you were feeling like, what's next, though, God? What's going to happen next? And this is, this should be an eye opener for anybody right now that is in that position.
Yeah.
That it might be challenging, but the door is open.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to walk out of it?
Yeah, and I would say there's that aspect. I would also say another angle to think through this is you might have some people listening that their world just got turned upside down. And first I just want to say, if your world has just got turned upside down, maybe you lost your job, maybe you just lived through a disaster like similar than I have. I know people they've gone through hurricanes. There's disasters. You might have gone through a wildfire yourself, I'm not sure, or just maybe your family is in turmoil and it feels like your entire world is turned upside down. I just want to say I empathize with that, and I don't have all the answers for that. But I will say I have found in my experience that God has been faithful, even in the middle of the storm, even in the middle of loss, even in the middle of when life doesn't make sense. Sometimes that's when his fingerprints are the most obvious when you look back. But when you're in the middle of it, sometimes God seems distant. Sometimes he seems silent. Sometimes he seems like he's not involved or caring or close. And I get that because I felt that and I remember that, and it sucked. But looking back, I'm like, there's so many obvious points of his presence and his fingerprints. I was just so focused on the problems that I didn't see it. And so if that's you, if you're the person listening, that your world's just been turned upside down, I just want to validate that whether it feels like he's there or not, God is close. God is attentive to the details in your life. He does care, and you are going to grow immensely through this. And so while it's not enjoyable at the time, I encourage you to adopt the mindset. And this might tick you off to even hear it, but I encourage you to adopt the mindset that to ask yourself this question: is it possible that what you're going through right now is the best thing to have ever happened in your life? Because I would have never said that the campfire at the time was the best thing that has ever happened in my life. But looking back on it, the campfire was devastating, but hands down, it is the best thing, the best event that's happened in my life. And it's crazy how God uses tragedy and uses really awful circumstances to allow us to grow and develop and to trust and to depend. And so if you're in the middle of it, I just want to inflate you with some hope today that God is right in the middle of that mess, and he is faithful at all times.
Very well said, Ryan. Very well said. Because somebody really needs to hear that right now. I imagine they're going through it. They're feeling that pain. And to hear your words, it's really probably touching home with them. Yeah. And there's often people that are, like you said, they think that God has abandoned them, that has walked away and out the picture, and he's not paying no mind to. But really, this is where we got to open our eyes and to really see that it's us that walked away. God's there all along. He remains faithful.
Sure.
And he's looking at you like, this is rough.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. But have patience and know that, I'm going to get you through this. We're going to get you back through this. Yeah. You don't believe me? Read the book of Job.
Mm-hmm.
That guy, he went through the ringer, man.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine.
You think you had it bad? Read Job. That guy, even his friends were telling him to turn on God and he remained faithful. Trust God and know that you're gonna make it through. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. Exactly what happened to Ryan.
Yeah,
he didn't see. he saw it, he was going through it, just like he said, and he made it through it. And now, are you still with the company or?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's doing well. And it's funny, Chris, I have people all the time. When I run into people from the church, from Paradise, the question I get most is, do you miss being in full-time ministry? And I'm very quick to answer that question. And my answer is, I never left full-time ministry. I am always in full-time ministry, and I've got plenty of opportunity, even at the solar company that I'm a part of. There's just so much opportunity there, just to love people, to care for people, to be an example, to be a light. And so I'm just grateful for that all the time. Like, yeah, I don't get paid full-time at a church anymore, but I never left full-time ministry. That's just always my mindset. It's always my heart and my passion. So it doesn't matter where I'm at, I'm going to minister to people. But so I'm just really grateful for the opportunities I have within my own company to just care for people and love them well.
All right. So I know that working for a solar company, you have had some dad jokes working for the solar company, mixing ministry and the solar company together. What's the best one you got?
Oh, I don't know if I really have any jokes. It's just, I just know it took a lot of humility. It took a lot of humility. Going from being the person that everyone knows in town, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people in town knew who I was and knew what I did, to now I'm like knocking in different areas. People have no clue who I am. Most people that are out knocking doors, stereotypically here in California, are college age or early 20s. And here I am in my mid 40s knocking doors. And it was a huge bout of humility. But again, I had to prove to my family that I was willing to do tough things. That's probably the biggest joke, is me like literally going out and knocking doors. That is the joke. I was the joke. I was willing to be the butt of the joke. And, people rejecting me all the time, people making comments about door-to-door people, having no clue that my past was ministry and like serving communities. But, some people, they're just not nice at the door. That's okay. But I found very quickly that actually my age was a benefit, because people were used to seeing younger guys knocking on the door. And now when you got an older guy knocking on the door, they would keep the door open longer. And when they found out that my conversation at the door didn't sound like a sales pitch like they're used to hearing from all of the other solar people that knock their door, and then when they heard like I've got like a ministry heart and I care about them, like it just turned into so much opportunity for me. And so while I felt like I was the butt of the joke for a while, I was like, no, actually all those things ended up playing in my favor, to the point where I actually was given an award in the industry that's given to the top 1% of solar people across the entire nation. And so like I'm part of the 1%. I'm like super proud of that. And that all started from me knowing zero. I mean, I knew nothing about solar. I grew up in a town that was covered in shade. And so to go from knowing nothing about solar to having this amount of success, I'm just super proud of that. And just grateful that I like embraced the challenge. I embraced the difficult. I embraced stuff I didn't want to do. I embraced the pain, and good things came as a result.
So as we begin to wrap this thing up, though,
yeah,
what are you currently working on?
So I'm still working in the solar company, obviously. I've also started to do executive coaching, which I'm really enjoying as well. And this last year, ironically, I know I'm on a podcast right now, but ironically, my New Year's resolution for 2025 was to start a podcast of my own. And so I've actually done that. You can see the sign up here. Choose a better story has kind of been a life phrase for our family for a bit. And so that's the name of the podcast that I do now. I'm just super proud of it. It's a podcast basically about vision, mindset, performance, and purpose. And so I talk about one of those things on a weekly basis, or I have a guest that I interview that like exemplifies one of those four things. And it's just been so fun to, what I like to say is I like to interview community heroes. And by community heroes, what I mean is I like to interview people that are making a difference in their community, even though they're not recognized for it. Now, like for example, yesterday I had just an awful day. My key fob for my truck wasn't reading my key fob, so I got stuck at an appointment. It's so embarrassing. Parked in front of the person's house that I went to go run an appointment for. Blocked their car in the garage because I parked right behind the garage, and then my truck wouldn't start. And it was a long day of trying to figure out what the heck was going on, and they had a tough time trying to get my truck onto a tow truck. Long story short, the guy that gave me a ride home yesterday in the tow truck is just an incredible family guy. I'm like, dude, you have to be on the podcast because you're a community hero. I was like totally stuck today, and there's only one person that could have helped me like get out of my stuck scenario and back on the road, and that's you. And he's like, yeah, I'll come on your podcast. So I now get to interview like a tow truck driver. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been doing recently, and just at the company, just building into our leadership and trying to help grow that company to a point that we're like super proud of what we're doing within our local community. So that's kind of what I'm up to.
Guys, if you want to check out the podcast, the link is in the description. So you could definitely check out Ryan's podcast after this episode, and check out it. Have you had the tow guy on yet? Or
What's that?
Is it? When do you have the tow truck driver on there? Have you already did the episode?
No, I just met him yesterday. So yeah, we're gonna put something on the calendar for an interview the next couple of weeks.
So you guys can look out for that, and the other stuff that he's got on the podcast too as well. I mean, I can only imagine the stories that are being shared left and right on there. The town.
Yeah, it's fun. I really like the interview style just because I love people's stories. I mean, you're asking me about my story, and the fire was awful, but it's a part of my story. I don't mind talking about it at all. And people have their own stories, and I love like digging in and finding out more. Just kind of like you're asking me questions. I'm doing the same thing. As soon as we're done here, I'm hopping right into an interview with a guy that played football for USC. And so I'm just going to talk about his experience there, playing for USC, and the disappointment that he faced when he had high hopes of going to the NFL and he didn't get drafted. So we're going to talk about that disappointment, and then how he's turning that into like a driver to aim towards what he really wants in life. So
What's his next move?
Yep.
When the dream that you're chasing doesn't succeed, what you're going after, and then you have to go for plan B.
Yep, exactly.
All right, let's wrap this thing up with 3 random questions.
Sure.
The first question is, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color?
Yeah.
My favorite color? I'm from Paradise, and Paradise is green and gold, so I'd say my favorite color's got to be green. I bleed green and gold.
Green and gold, man. All right, question number 2. If you could live anywhere else in the world, completely, free, no expenses, where are you going?
Oh man, I would say it's one or two places. I would say I like Kauai. I like Kauai a lot. Yeah, you said free, right? If I could live there for free.
Yep, completely free, no expenses.
Yeah, I'd say Kauai.
Taken care of.
Yeah, Kauai is beautiful. Yep.
All right. For the last question, since you're a podcast host yourself, I'll allow you to ask me a question.
Yeah. So the question would be, when you hear the phrase, choose the better story, what comes to your mind?
Choose the better story. Look at life positively. Look at like everything positive. Don't look at life negative, but chase the positive. do the good in life. Live your life the way you want to live it. How you want to live out your story. That's the best way I could probably put it.
There you go. Yeah. And when you do that, you're living a better story. It's just like such a simple application. Because yeah, if you view life through a negative lens, guess how your story is going to result? Negative. Yeah. And if you just, and people live that way, and you probably know people that live through negative lenses, like that's all they see is everything's negative. And that's a choice. But if you choose to take those lenses off and replace them with positive lenses, you will be surprised how dramatically your life will change just by operating out of a positive mindset and having positive lenses to look through. Your life will dramatically change. And that's all a choice. And so, yeah, well said. That's the way to choose a better story.
And I mean, it's for people that are watching, listening right now, and you're probably thinking to yourself that that's a fairy tale, Chris, that you can live life just being positive all the time. It's like, yeah, it is kind of challenging because the world will throw stuff at you, curveballs and stuff. Like, I mean, look at Paradise, that it burnt down around him.
Yeah.
But it's how you handle the situation. He could be like everybody else, where they're defeated by it. They're reflecting on memories of the past. But if you sit you're driving a car, what's the first thing you notice about that car when you're sitting in the driver's seat?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, what's the first thing that you notice when you're sitting in the driver's seat of the car? What do you notice?
The first thing I notice is the windshield and being able to see what's in front of me.
And how wide is that windshield?
Oh man, that's a wide windshield. Like it takes my whole vision up in the front.
And then you notice the side mirrors and the rear mirror. What's different about them and the main windshield?
That's right. They're smaller. And they're
small.
And they're pointed towards what's behind.
Yep. So you don't focus on the stuff that's from the past. You keep driving what's in forward. And that's what you gotta do with life. You gotta stay positive. When stuff goes wrong, you just think, what could go right? Don't think what could happen worse next, but be positive about the situation. And like you said, you'll see the results. You change your way of thinking, your whole mindset. Like, okay, this didn't work out, but what else does God have planned for me here? What's next?
You got it.
All right, Ryan. Thank you, and I appreciate you for coming on and telling your story. I mean, that was really, really good. It was really good.
Happy to do it. Yep. I'm grateful to have the story that I have, and I'm grateful to share it. So thanks for having me.
This is Chris, your host. That is Ryan Wright. Until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Oye, Ryan Wright, dale. Desde el paraíso, donde todo se quemó, perdí mi casa, pero la fe nunca se fue, no. 8 años han pasado, mira la nueva visión, renaciendo en el fuego, esa es mi canción. Con la cruz en mi pecho, siento la bendición. Este flow es mi historia, pura inspiración, yeah.